Who's the most famous person that sent in sperm to you guys or like joined the sperm race?
We flew all the way to San Francisco to interview the most interesting founders in the valley. And today we're gonna meet Eric Zhu, the founder of Sperm Race. With just 17 years old, his startup went viral and they've raised over 10 million US dollars.
Sperm race today.
Sperm race.
Sperm race. Sperm race.
Sperm racing by chance.
That somehow came up. What if they did like those sperm races?
I love those sperm races.
In this video you'll see if this is just another viral startup or if there's an actionable business to be built. Let's see.
Good to meet you, bro.
Good to meet you.
How's your day?
Pretty good. How about you?
Pretty good. We're excited to be here.
Hell yeah.
I wasn't sure for a second if you got the invite, but you got, right?
Yes, sir.
Like, where are we, bro? Like, what is this?
Let me take this one down. Actually, let me take two of them down. Like we did like some silly stuff where it's like we do like a race-themed dinner every single like Friday. You know, it's like we started doing it because this New York Times writer, he was like trying to write a hit piece where like, you know, let's just troll for a weekend. So like for the first week, what we did was we did a Shabbat. And during the Shabbat, it was all like really white people food and people had to use it using chopsticks. And the joke was like, oh, like we're gonna like explore different cultures.
So Eric, where the hell are we? In the middle of San Francisco. What is this? Like, show us around.
Yeah, this is Sperm Racing office. So basically, like the idea is that you want to turn like health into a competition, right? Where you know, if you train for sports, why not just train your like overall health and make yourself like a lot healthier? So like we have a lot of products. So for example, like we have our own supplement brand. So the one of the co-founders of Blueprint, so Brian Johnson's company, we hired him. Now he runs all our. You could have some too. And then we also run an underwear company where we have like breathable underwear and a lot of different stuff. And basically the idea is like we could roll up a bunch of these kind of products up together, which has been interesting. And then we also have like this is like the lab.
This is where the race is happening.
Yeah, this is where the races are happening. This is the lab. This is like our microscope where we run like a lot of the kind of races. We also have this is like the racetrack. So the racetrack, I don't think people understand how small these racetracks are. But it's basically just like the centerpiece, right? Where it's just really, really fucking small. You know, this is like all of like the process to raise sperm was like a lot harder than we initially thought.
I mean, the name suggests it a bit, but like for someone who doesn't have like any idea like what sperm racing is like.
We race sperm on it's like F1. It's like F1, but we race cum.
How did you come up with such an idea?
You know, it was kind of crazy. It was like last year I was with a bunch of health people and they were talking about sperm. And I was like, that's like really, really weird. We're at a concert and they're talking about sperm. And then kind of when they talked about it more, they were like, oh, like it's like a really good indicator of health and stuff like that. And I was like really interested. And I was like, oh, well, like why not? Like let's do a sperm race. Like why aren't people like doing sperm races? And then later, like next year, this billionaire, he flew me out to New York for a weekend. He was like, what's the craziest idea you have? And I was like, sperm racing. And yeah, we put a manifesto out saying like, oh, we want to turn health into a competition, and then people ended up giving us a lot of money, and we ended up spending it all on like a race in LA, and it went viral. So that's kind of how everything happened. So.
Incredible. So can people send in like basically like how does it work for me? You know, who wants to basically race my
Yeah. So I mean, we've done like a lot of like celebrity races, but actually, you know, we were doing this World Cup thing where anyone could you know, logistically it was like a pain in the ass, but people could send and race. You know, you guys could race friends. We also do birthday parties too. So you know, if you guys are having birthday parties and want to do a sperm race, you know. But actually, you know, something interesting that we've been trying to find recently is actually like who's the healthiest man alive, right? Like how can we actually compete and have a leaderboard with competitions all around health? So like how can we incentivize people to be healthier and optimize as much as they can?
What are like the markers you look at most that are most indicative of actually measuring, you know, like how do you compound a score basically for, you know, like the leaderboard? I
think, you know, sperm is like a really good proxy for overall health because if you think about it, it is your DMA, but also like at the same time, it has like a lot of different components, right? Where it's like really reflective. You know, if you're an unhealthy person, your sperm is usually a lot slower or typically a lot worse, right? As of like quality wise. And you know, there is like this big fact that like fertility is like a big issue, right? Like there's obviously been things where it's like, oh, like fertility has declined 50% within the last like 50 years, right? Which is absolutely crazy. And 1 out of 6 people are infertile. And the reason why no one's talking about it is because it's so taboo. If we're able to change that, I think there's a lot of different opportunities that could be opened up. I think it's like one of the biggest or like next biggest health crises, which is going to be interesting.
How do you convince people to actually send in the sperm? Was it easier than you thought initially? Like I saw people like Logan Paul or Tom Brady talking about it. Like, was it easy to kind of motivate the culture in the US to kind of take it like seriously and just do it, you know? Or was it like a struggle initially?
It was a little bit of both where like, I mean, thinking about it, it's like people already are hesitant to go to a sperm bank and donate their sperm, and racing it is probably much harder, right? So initially it was, but you know, as time went on, it became easier and easier where like it just became more normalized, right? And like people kept seeing it on social media. So they're like, hell yeah, this is like kind of cool.
How does it feel to actually come up with such a social phenomenon, you know, culturally, like to actually have an event with the race? People coming there, like celebrating this, no one cared about it probably before, it was like taboo taboo, as you mentioned. Like, how does it feel to make this really a thing, you know, here in the US?
Yeah, I think this is really weird because it's like if you like think about a company like this is like probably one of the weirdest fucking companies you could ever like do, right? It's like you're racing other people's like sperm. But I mean it's kind of exciting. There's so many different things you could work on this world, and you know like sperm racing is definitely like a pretty interesting outlier. So it's pretty fucking fun. I think like the more ambitious the idea is, I think the more exciting. You know, you could like life's too short to build enterprise software, right? So.
And you're basically actively working on this. Where should it be in 2 years? Like, where you want to take basically sperm racing as a brand or a company?
Yeah, I think you know people don't understand like sperm racing as a business in general, right? Where it's like outside we do the races, but it breaks even. Fundamentally, as a business, we operate in multiple different ways. Where one, we kind of operate as a P firm. We buy out businesses that we find are interesting around health, around anything, and we kind of have internal systems to essentially scale them up. So like all our brands are doing really well independently of sperm racing, but sperm racing is one of the things that helps it a lot, especially since we gravitate towards health. I think there's a lot of different opportunities here in the space too. So we basically like roll up a bunch of these companies. You know, one of the things that I learned from my last company is basically building complex internal tools. And one of the things that we've been doing is actually spending a lot of time building very complex software to kind of compete with other people. Like for example, one of the companies we bought out is like an e-com brand, and it's like if we look at the kind of whole landscape of like e-com companies, it is like they do not know how to build software. And then you look at like Brex versus Ram, and they have really complex internal systems. And it's like, can we use that same like thought process when it comes to like building a lot of these other brands that have like immense arbitrage opportunities in?
Cool. Just basically improve the profitability of these companies that you buy. Like, how many did you acquire so far, or like how much funding did you raise?
So we raised a little bit more than 10, and like we have around like 4 brands that we have right now, and like we're just scaling all of them up. And each of these businesses are pretty decent businesses, right? So it's been pretty nice.
Cool. Let's maybe have a look around.
Yeah, and then we have like an upstairs. So I can kind of show you guys. We just moved our lab like downstairs. This is like the upstairs. So we have like like a lot of like the microscopes and or like excess microscopes, and so this used to be a lab, but we're turning this more into like a meeting room. But yeah, we also have like we also have like printers and stuff like that. We were trying to do testing kits for like a little bit, and then yeah, so this is like the upstairs, and then this is where like some people work, right? Where like they're either working on a lot of different brands that we have, or like operationally, which is pretty nice. And then a lot of people that do the races, and also Christian does a lot of our bio stuff. If we go downstairs, this is where like the chips are printed. So we have like a fab lab here. Where is the?
What are you doing there?
This is like where we print all the chips. So this is like where the racetracks are printed. I don't know if the lights are on. Basically, if you like take a look inside here, this is like our like fab lab. So we like fabricate a lot of chips and do a lot of stuff around there. Here. Huh?
What does he say?
He said don't open the tent. Okay. Probably running like an experiment or something like that.
Perfect, guys.
Man,
we blurred this out, right?
Hell yeah. And then this is like we basically have like a pretty like, to run a lot of the races, like we basically have to map it out in like a 3D kind of thing. So it requires like a lot of like custom stuff to kind of build to like run a race. Like racing sperm is a lot more complicated than we thought.
How old are you right now?
Huh?
How old are you?
I'm 18. I mean, I'm getting old, man.
18.
Yeah.
How does a kid with 18 years old make such a thing out of sperm racing and raising money? What was it like for you? Was it easy? Was it a benefit in fundraising?
I think like the more insane the idea is, right, the more like people like it, and it's a lot easier. And actually, I mean, I have 2 other co-founders. So Shane and Nick are both co-founders. So Shane is actually working on like a lot of like the
What's up? Good to meet you, bro.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah. So and Nick is upstairs. They're younger. Actually, Shane's older, but Nick's younger. He just turned 17 last week. Yeah. And then I mean we all started businesses before, right? So
how did you find your co-founders?
I knew them for quite some time. So like knew them for like I think like 5 or 6 years. Nick was one of my closest friends. Then I met Shane 4 years ago in New York. And then when I came up with the idea, I was catching with Shane the next day, and I was like, yo, like. Let's race sperm.
Yeah.
This is like such a, you feel the young spirit, like stuff laying around left and right, Also our kitchen looks like yours. You look messy as fuck, but like
hell yeah.
That's the vibe, You guys are grinding. Are you working like 7 days a week non-stop, or like what's the vibe in the team?
Yeah. I think it's like I think that the team is pretty young, right? Where like everyone is super young, and like we also have like a couple like high schoolers here too that are here full time. Is pretty hard convincing their parents. I actually convinced his parent. So he used to do like a lot of really cinematic stuff previously. So I don't know if you guys seen like some of the sperm racing videos, like the super cinematic stuff. But he basically built a lot of like super talented, right? And I think there's a lot of high school talent and also really ambitious like people in high school that are pretty sick. So.
How do you find those? Because I agree. Like also our team. I mean, we're maybe a bit older, but like 21, 22 basically. Like how do you source them or like get them to join?
That's a good question. Yeah, I actually don't know. I just know
They
a lot of
just
high
pop up,
schoolers.
you know? They all competed, you know, they did well, and that's the criteria for hiring.
Hell yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like,
I mean,
you gotta be
I think
happy.
it's just like finding super talented, super agentic, and super like ambitious people. I think is kind of like the thing. Where it's like I think I made a lot of mistakes before hiring, like hiring and stuff like that. And I think you basically want to take. I think hiring is like more of a thing where it's like you want to take bets, right? You want to take bets of people that are going to be successful later on, right? And I think one of the most undervalued like talent pools is actually the high schoolers, where it's like no one knows how to value them. And if you're able to find them really early on and index off of people that would be like really successful when they're 25, that is also like a very interesting thing.
Awesome, so cool.
Yeah.
Nice. Should we sit down somewhere or maybe
Hell
just
yeah.
talk a bit more?
Sure.
Are you also working at Aviato right now actively, or is that more of a side
Yeah.
thing?
So actually,
wait, sorry. Look
Yeah.
at this.
Yeah. Hell yeah.
Different type of CEO. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Who's playing music? Are you
You
hosting
DJ?
parties here?
We got in trouble for hosting some parties here, so we can't host parties here anymore. But yeah.
I used to DJ a lot when I was younger. So
Oh, hell yeah.
Brings back
What was
memories.
your favorite DJ?
Kind of music, but before they were a thing. You know, kind of music, like Afro House.
Afro House, yeah.
Yeah. So Aviato, are you working on this actively as well? Or?
Yeah, so Aviato, right? We ended up selling, so like it's still like big data providers. Where if you worked in private markets before, you probably use our data. So we're like AngelList is biggest data provider, SourceScrub, and a lot of like big P tools. So and Venture. But it was kind of this case where it's like if I'm like 18, right? What is like the most crazy things I could do? Which is in enterprise software. And it's like I could spend the next 10 years building it, and you know probably make a lot of money. But is this like the highest kind of thing that you can actually do, or more exciting to do when you're like a lot younger? Not really. Right. And so when Sperm Racing came, it was like kind of this thing where actually a lot of my investors were telling me, hey, you should like work on something crazier. And this is like one of the things that is actually incredibly crazy to essentially do. But Aviato is still a great business. Like a lot of people use it. Yeah, it's a really decent business.
Cool. But your focus fully is on Sperm Racing, right?
Yeah, I think it's like one of the things where it's like you want to do one thing really well, right? If you spread it across too thin, you're going to lose focus.
I'll go more into this fundraising thing because I mean you're 18, you know, there's probably some kids 14, 13 years old somewhere already dreaming about like doing their own thing, you know, they are good at craft, good at coding, good at making videos, whatever their skill is. Like how can I get money or like actually make that step, you know? What was your experience? Was it easy to kind of convince these people?
I actually think fundraising is like a lever. It's not like a, you know, I think people glorify fundraising way too much, where in a sense fundraising is literally like you're taking debt for your, it's worse than a loan to some extent, you know, where like the risk is low when it comes to, you know, taking a loan where it's like if you lose all the money, you don't have to pay it back. But on the other side, it is like the upside is way too high, where it's like if you sell like a extended amount of your company for a really early stage and, you know, you sell for like hundreds of millions of dollars, it becomes very, very expensive. So I think a lot of people glorify fundraising way too much, where it's like literally like the thesis should literally just be raise as much money as you need and just execute. I think fundamentally you're building a business. And I think that's the misconception people have, which is like essentially you're trying to build a business. And a business is true for anything that you do, right? It's literally just about scale and margins and all that kind of stuff. But it's like, think about it this way. The fundamentals of a software business is very, very similar to, for example, running a hot dog stand or any other traditional business. The only reason why software is a lot better is because the margins are much lower. The margins are much higher, the cogs are way lower, and you could scale a lot faster, which makes it a much more appealing business. But fundamentally, like you're basically doing the same thing, which is like you're trying to service a need in the market. And in a hot dog stand, it is like no matter like how strong your like team is, right? Where like you have like the highest, you know, like business people and the best chefs in the world and, you know, maybe immense amount of capital. If the hot dogs are shit, fundamentally you will fail inevitably. And that's the same way that you should approach business, which is like make really, really great products, focus on revenue and scale, and capital should only be a lever to grow faster. It should not be the main thing that you're selling, which I think that's the most misconception that people have. And I think with my first company, right, like what ended up happening was I started in the high school bathroom. So like we were raising money in the high school bathroom and all that kind of stuff, which was pretty fucking insane actually. It was a fun time. Like I kind of realized fundamentally that like everyone was like chasing just like glorified version of like debt, and it just doesn't make sense.
Vanity milestones.
Yeah, exactly. A lot of vanity milestones, right? And it's just like, don't talk to anyone, build a fucking great business, and people will start eventually following.
I agree so much. I mean, so many people over-intellectualize basically the whole startup thing, you know, like they really come up with fancy theories kind of to run things, but in the end, that's what it's all about.
Yeah, it's like practicality. You see teams that are very, very strong fail all the time, and that is practically because they are not able to build a business, right? That's what people should think about.
So basically, a 16-year-old kid listening to you, just do it, you know, just start building your business, start making money, and the thing goes from there.
I think money is one thing, but also it's like a potential upside, right? I think what's more interesting is the new assumptions that you come up with. I think fundamentally it is true for any business, which is like, what is the arbitrage opportunity you have? How are you able to compete with everyone around you? And arbitrage is actually quite interesting, where it's like you see something that no one else sees, and you think this assumption will help you compete or be better than anyone else. And that is kind of the fundamentals of how I think about business, is like, can you come up with as many assumptions as possible that no one else sees and double down on them? It could be the most controversial ones, but if you win, the upsides are immensely high.
Why do you think so many kids or people try to fit in, where you basically argue for like being contrarian in a way, just seeing something that is unique, that is different? Like, why do you think it's so hard for so many?
I think taking the most unpopular opinion is always fundamentally very hard. You know, it is very easy to, like, this is why you cannot make anyone essentially like a founder. There's like a very select group of people that could essentially lead companies, and it's very hard. It's one of the hardest jobs, right? I mean, there's hard jobs, but this is like one of the hard jobs, right? Out there, and it takes like a very, very specific type of people to essentially do that love pain and suffering, you know, to actually do it.
A big part of sperm racing and also many businesses that are coming up now is content, obviously, and also navigating this as almost a first party element of your company. How do you think about content basically in context to sperm racing, in context to other companies in the world right now? Like, what is your take on that?
Actually, you know, this is kind of weird saying like from someone that runs sperm racing, but I actually think attention is very cheap. An extent where actually attention doesn't matter as much. I think it mattered a lot differently like 10 years ago, when very less people on the internet, and it was like a kind of not a commodity yet. But now attention is essentially a commodity, and I think systems to scale a lot of these different things are actually what is you know, the more important kind of opportunity here. You know, it's like, if you think about it, content is literally just a distribution channel for anything that you could sell. Like, even celebrities are like what is the product they're trying to sell? They're trying to sell themselves, right? And attention is just a way to help distribute any specific thing that you essentially do. But if you try to distribute in content in the wrong way, where it's like, let's just say you're building an enterprise software company, and you know, you're saying obscene stuff and going viral on TikTok, fundamentally you won't like any customers and any sales, right? And stuff like that, and you essentially just end up being like selling yourself. And that's what attention should be thought about. It's just like a distribution, or like a kind of like conversion layer. And you know, that's essentially how I think about attention. So
do you have any like thoughts? Let's say Cluely, right? That's like a startup that went really heavy on this content first, attention grabbing approach, you know, and they did a phenomenal job at grabbing attention. But now, as you look kind of how this converts into a real business that has substance, that, you know, has really a product that people love, like, what are your thoughts on that if you read that situation in a way?
I mean, Roy's a friend, and you know, I knew him before he started Cluely. He has an immense amount of personality, right? But also like all these different things are essentially like kind of like he's very smart in a sense where he's a very clear contrarian, where he's very different than everyone else, and all his assumptions are very wildly different. And with these new assumptions, it's a binary outcome. Either it becomes very successful or it doesn't. And I think you know, with a strong personality as him, right? It is like I think he did attention really right, but the product was fundamentally wrong. And I think he realized that, and now, you know, you see like his new stuff, which is like UGC, etc., which essentially they pivoted out of enterprise software. I think they will do very, very well. And also, Roy is a very smart operator, so I respect the hell out of him.
Incredible, yeah. So some piece you would kind of tell like a young kid that basically wants to break into also building their startups that you think is a good kind of path to follow?
There's not like linearity, right, when it comes to like building a company. There's obviously like a lot of different kind of pathways you could take. You know, what works, like if another kid, you know, tries to go in the bathroom and start raising money, they will not go in the same direction or the same path as me. It will probably be fundamentally different. And I think that the biggest thing people should realize is that what they see on social media is only half true, where essentially they are putting the best version of themselves outside. There's so many different fundamental business decisions. I think, you know, bad advice hurts people, but I think you can't really like follow like a specific, like everything someone says on social media. You essentially have to like see it and do it, right? Because, like I think Cluely is like a great example where I have like background on a lot of stuff that is happening there, and you know, it is fundamentally very different than what you see, right? And the decisions and stuff like that are fundamentally very different, and the thought process are very different. You never know internally if things are working out or if things are not working out. And on the outside, anything could look like it's working out, but when it isn't, you won't know. And when you try to replicate something that doesn't work, you know, you're fucked, right? And stuff like that. So,
who's the most famous person that sent in sperm to you guys or like joined the sperm race? I have to ask for the hook, bro. We
have so many. We did so many races. Yeah, I think a lot of like big celebrities. Like we did one with iShow Speed. We did like David Dobrik. We did a bunch of celebrities that I used to watch, which was pretty fucking sick. But you know, my biggest celebrity I've ever seen is Dave Bluntz. Have you seen Dave Bluntz? He's like the super big guy. Man, I'm his biggest fan. He's like 700 pounds. It's fucking lit.
What's the next craziest move you're doing at Sperm Racing?
I think finding the healthiest person alive is something that is very interesting. It's like, can you actually find like the healthiest man alive from like every like, you know, from Whoop and all these different things, right? And have them compete in something I think is like pretty fucking sick. And that's what Shane's working on right now.
Any deadlines or like things when we can see stuff like already communicated or?
Yeah, actually, you know who would be really good to show you guys like some of the stuff around the vision for like some of the stuff we're working on is actually Shane.
Can you do that? Like, would you be down?
Yeah, he's totally down. Yeah.
Cool. Stoked to get a behind-the-scenes look, you know, into crazy startups on SF. This is different than before, but it's very refreshing. I love it. So as much as we can see, I think we'll love to, you know,
let's do it.
take with us.
Yeah. Yo, Shane. Wait, Shane here? You want to go through they want to see like one of the sperm races or like the live show like behind the scenes for like the biomarker stuff.
Like show us as much as possible.
Would you be down?
You know, like what are you working on? What are you up to? All this stuff.
Yeah, so we see sperm racing as an ultimate health competition. Sperm is actually a good biomarker to predict someone's overall health, and it's very overlooked. Right? People only use blood or urine as the current biomarkers to determine how healthy they are. But sperm is actually something that everyone overlooks. And now we're basically turning that into like a whole broadcast, whole competition. Through our live run of show, we're gonna have a bunch of all of these like really high-tech biotech gadgets to basically qualify how healthy someone is, including like DEXA scanners and other like really high-tech machines, which we'll find out on the stream.
Awesome, cool. And when is it happening?
It'll be late April, early May. It will be an ultimate competition. Yeah.
So how many people are participating again?
How many people? We'll have 2 competitors, one representing each country.
Okay.
Yeah.
And which countries? And what are you most excited about for next year, basically, in sperm racing?
Well, we're building the World Cup, so hopefully it can be bigger than the FIFA World Cup.
Let's go. That's an ambition, bro. Like bigger than FIFA. Okay, cool, awesome. Anything else you want to share?
Not so much, but yeah, there will be some crazy stuff coming up in the next
What do you
couple weeks.
work on the day-to-day?
Pretty much everything.
Everything, you're the guy for everything?
Yeah, but mostly just on the actual like sperm racing event, yeah.
Thank you, man. This is where the magic happens. This is your magic desk. How many hours do you spend a day working?
Usually a lot, yeah. like we're trying to get here at like 8 or something like that, and then we like leave usually at like 12. So it's been a lot, and then yeah, like you kind of see like here, there's like a
proof of work.
Tay was here earlier, so.
Actually, I have one more question. So, a lot of people suck at content, and I would include myself to a degree. Like, the YouTube thing we do quite well, you know? But like on Instagram, like I'm asked in terms of content, what do you see people are doing wrong in sort of
Bro,
on X,
I fell off of content, man. I haven't posted for like multiple years.
You should consume it, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, 'cause I used to do like a lot of content, and you know, like during the time when we were like raising money in the bathroom. I mean, it was a crazy time where it's like I got kicked out of school for like the content, but it was fucking lit. But then after that, it was like, shit, how can I actually build a business? I think the only rule in social media is literally just contrast, right? How can you do it different than everyone else? Everyone consumes the same content. A lot of content is boring, and you just have to do it different than everyone else. Yeah.
Follow your path. Do your
Hell
own
yeah.
thing. Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Bro,
appreciate you guys for coming by.